Ozonics Killerwinds podcast back again. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Episode 51. Man, we are just knocking them off right now.
Yep.
One after another, like boom, boom, boom. Just wanted to make sure I was recording, and I am. I had a little bit of a, I felt a deer in the headlights like there for a second. I was like, uh-oh, might not have been recording. So today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about videoing hunts.
Yep.
Everything A to Z. We're going to talk about equipment. We're going to talk about techniques. We're going to talk about just everything. We're going to talk about how to do it, how to film hunts, how we film hunts, turkey hunting, how we film hunts, deer hunting.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. I feel like this year at the consumer shows, especially Harrisburg and Iowa, we had, and again, part of it is we had a camera set up. We were trying, you were there trying to see if we could get some really awesome testimonials. And it's funny, you know, we're trying to get people to walk in the booth to look at Ozonics, but sometimes people walked in the booth just to look at the gear.
Yeah.
Hey, man, let me look at that camera.
Yeah.
I'll never forget years ago, John Bergman, a buddy of ours, he's a professional videographer, and he has a Canon Red, which is a very, very nice camera.
Yeah.
And he was at the Iowa Deer Classic. And, man, I think that weekend we had more people walk in the booth to look at that Canon Red. You know, I started saying that he was going to start charging a couple bucks to touch it, you know?
Yeah.
Because people are like, hey, man, like, is that a Canon Red?
Yeah.
You know, it's just so funny to see people's reactions. So we're going to talk a lot about everything, and just our experiences, the gear that we have. And again, it's not that there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat.
Oh, yeah.
This is just the way we do it. And hopefully maybe it sheds some light. Like I said, I felt like this winter we had a lot of people asking us questions about young guys. Even there was that one dad that walked up. He's like, yeah, man, like I really think I'm gonna start videoing my hunts. And I'm looking at a camera and what do I need to get? And and I think he DM'd you a couple times after that, trying to look at what to get.
I've kept in a little bit of contact with him. He's just asked me some questions about certain cameras, editing software, yada, yada, yada. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So we're going to go through a bunch of different stuff. But before we start, a little bit of a buzzkill.
Yeah. We've kind of had a tough couple weeks, it feels like.
Dude. So I don't even remember what episode it was. It was towards the beginning.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 8 maybe?
Yeah, maybe in the like single digits in the teens.
7, yeah.
We did an episode called Don't Be That Guy.
Yeah.
Which seems pretty self-explanatory, but don't be
Yeah. Come on, man.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But we've had I have had a couple experiences. One just a couple hours ago, actually, unfortunately. Of the don't be that guy experiences. So it's just kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So the first one happened like a week ago. We've got a bunch of cams out. We've talked about that for turkey season.
Yep.
And I've got a couple cameras in this bottom near this river. And the one camera I figured was dead. You know, that made sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, it's just dead. But the other camera just wasn't transmitting. It was saying full battery. Everything seemed fine. It was on a solar panel.
Yeah.
It's like, how could this not be working? There's no turkeys walking by. There's nothing walking by.
Yeah, you look at the Tacticam app and it's full bars,
everything,
full battery.
Yep, and it's like it's kind of a spot where when it's wet, you don't really want to go down in there.
Yeah,
it's a heck of a walk. So I was just like, oh, I'll just wait. Like, must just not be anything walking by.
Yeah,
and we went in there last week and checked the batteries and change out batteries. And I go there, and we walk up to it, and the solar panel is unplugged.
Yep.
Which just doesn't come unplugged.
Yeah.
Especially the way I had it Jimmy rigged up. Like it was
clearly down.
Unplugged.
Yeah.
And then I start looking at the camera and I'm looking, turn it on. It's on full bars. I'm like, we're both looking at it just puzzled.
Yeah.
Here's somebody pulled out the SD card.
Yeah. Private land, most likely trespassing, and then walked by the camera and thought, you know what? I'm going to ruin that guy's day. Yeah.
I'm going to unplug the solar panel so now it won't work, and I'm going to pull the card.
Yeah.
It's like, man.
It's like, why? Like, what do you gain from that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
And it just like, because we were so confused. Like, why is there no turkeys down on this bottom? Like, what is going on?
It didn't even register that would have been a thing.
No, it didn't even register when you open it up and you're like, yeah, there's no SD card there. The first thing that came to my mind was, oh my gosh, did we forget to put an SD card in there? And I'm like, wait a second, we had like 2 weeks of pictures on there, and then they just stopped.
They just stopped. it just, it's like you try to look at the best in situations and the best in people.
Yeah.
And then they just completely let you down.
Yeah. It's like,
it just really, really sucks.
Well, I hope he was happy with the 2 weeks of a couple deer walking by and
and turkeys. It's just like, yeah. So that really sucked.
Yeah.
It was just like, man, what a letdown.
Yeah, because like when we went down, we were like, oh my gosh, this is like scratching everywhere. We're like, dude, there's turkeys in here for sure.
Yep.
And it was right after youth season.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we could have been down here with Jet.
Yep. We would have probably done different things.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was kind of a bummer. And then this one, I guess I have to take some responsibility for, especially when I have this conversation with my wife, because she's been telling me to lock my truck for the longest time and I don't. Again, I don't know. I just felt like, why would somebody break into my truck?
Yeah.
So I never have cash in my truck, ever. I never have cash in my truck. Like, I never really have cash.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, who has cash?
Yeah.
I had $180 in my glove box, literally, that I just got it yesterday. Like I had it in this little envelope.
Yeah.
And it was in my center console, and I didn't think anything of it. I was like, oh, I literally like yesterday, and then was working last night, and then came home, and then we went to lunch today. And I opened my center console and everything was just like
mangled.
It looked like a bomb went off. And it's a little disorganized, but I usually, how I have it.
Yeah.
I have a couple folders in there. It's like all pretty organized. Mm-hmm. And it was just like all mangled. And I'm like, what the heck? And sure enough, there's that envelope and all the money's gone.
Yeah. Except for some change.
Except for the change. So somebody between when I got home last night at 9 and this morning, or in the parking lot here at work,
man,
which seems real.
I just don't see that.
That seems really brave.
Yeah.
During the day, with all these cars, people coming in and out.
Yeah.
Police drive down these streets like they do everywhere.
Yeah.
So it had to have been last night at my house, I would think.
That's what I kind of think too.
So, yeah.
It's like, golly.
So whoever that person is, good for you.
Yeah. Well, the thing that worries me about that situation, like if it is at your house, it's almost like whoever did it is like going in there like every night, because like what are the odds that he would just, it's a Wednesday night, I'm just gonna go check in this guy's car.
Yeah, like I'm just walking down the street.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
so like our daughter Mia, she parks her car on the street and she had her car broken into last year and just had some stuff like something was gone, like I think some money.
I think it was some money too. Yeah. I feel like I remember that story.
And again, I should know better. I should lock my truck. In my defense, now again, my locks don't work that great. Like the wiring, I've had to replace some of the wiring on the back doors.
Yeah.
So like the passenger door doesn't lock.
Yeah.
I have to press it and it won't unlock. I have to open it. Mm-hmm. And the driver's one sometimes does, sometimes doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a pain.
Yeah.
But I have like this key fob deal on the outside that I can lock it. So I'm just going to obviously have to start doing that. But yeah, the moral of the story is man, I just really did not think, I don't know, just a real bummer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I actually got on my phone. I said to you before we started, I'm like, I need to find something to make me happy.
Yeah.
So I found what's up, brother? What's up, brother?
Sketch.
What does he say?
Check.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that'll always bring
special teams, special players, special plays.
That'll always bring a smile to
What's
somebody's
up,
face.
brother? What's up, brother? It sounds better in this voice.
What's up, brother? Check. Tuesday. Special plays. Special teams, special players, special plays. What's up, brother?
But we've had a real tough goal.
Yeah, it's just been a real bummer.
Cole hit a deer.
Oh, and then, gosh, I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me. We're just going straight to Sad Town.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, the other day, gonna go turkey hunting, get up in the morning, and driving down the highway, minding my own business in the pitch dark at 4:05 in the morning, just driving down the road. I just got up to speed. I think I literally just remember I just set my cruise at like 60. And I mean, you always hear people say, man, I didn't have any time. And I didn't have any time. I mean, that deer came off the left.
Yeah.
The left. It was a 2-lane highway. She got into the left lane and I had enough time to just barely tap my brakes. I mean, just barely tap them. And it was just whap. I mean, just smacked it.
Yeah.
Front, left side, headlight, grill, bumper, quarter panel, door, other headlight too, come to find out the way it scrunched it all. And a pull over, So, yeah.
And then my tailgate fell off my truck.
Yeah. Tailgate. They say bad things happen in threes. That's 4. But I guess that's 3 for me if you think about it.
Yeah, really.
The SD card out of the trail camera, hit a deer. Now
getting robbed.
Just a typical classic theft.
Yeah.
Golly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Nick's tailgate broke.
Yeah.
So you got 2 more bad things coming.
Oh, gosh, can't wait.
So anyway, I guess the moral of the story is just, gosh, man.
Only up from here, I guess.
Keep your head up, I guess. I mean, I don't know what to say. Oh, it just really, I don't even know. That has nothing to do with ozonics or anything, but just a real, if I sound a little down, I am.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's why.
I'm just having a rough go of it here lately.
Unreal.
Just a rough go. Okay, so let's get into it. So, a little bit of the context. So, Nick, your job at Ozonics is your technical title is content creator.
Yep.
So, Nick's been working at Ozonics for just over a year. You did an internship at Midwest Whitetail when it came, and it was all about videography and production.
Yep.
And then that's really what you do here. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, even as we do this podcast, a lot of the camera gear that we're going to talk about, we can't actually touch it because it's what we're filming on right now.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? So it's like there's the cameras.
Yeah.
And the microphones and the lights and all this stuff. But yeah, this is what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of joked before you were here when we used to do instructional videos. I used to do them. Like there was a guy named Bergie that worked here. He would help me kind of turn cameras. He would turn cameras on and off. But a lot of times I did it by myself.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just set it all up and press start and go.
Yeah.
Heck, I used to do, instructional videos in my basement.
Yeah.
Way, way back. So now it's kind of fun because I just get to do the fun part.
Yeah, exactly.
I
do too. I love doing it all.
Yeah.
It's fun to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of your background. Like I said, my background, like I said, I've been at Ozonics for 8 years. I was a videographer in a kind of previous job in Southern Colorado. The guy that I worked for had 2 national TV shows, and then I also guided for him. So I did videography kind of all around and all across North America for a ton of different animals.
Yep.
A lot of Western big game animals, and then a lot of whitetails and stuff as well. Yeah. And so that's kind of where my experience comes from. But it's interesting because we both have. It's almost like and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's almost this kind of new wave of equipment, especially in the last couple years when it comes to mirrorless cameras, especially, that has really taken over comparatively to when I was doing videography, when it was more, that was really when like the DSLR kind of craze started and everything was more high level professional camcorders.
Yep,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? And it's interesting as time goes on, when we're really just jumping right in here. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but it's interesting how one thing that you can definitely hang your hat on is that videography in general, it just continues to evolve and and evolve. And the technology and the resolution, the quality, everything. It just keeps going up and up and up. I remember when I was working in Colorado, we had an opportunity to get a Sony camera that did 120 frames per second in 5-second increments.
Yep.
And you had to press the button, you had to press record. It buffered at first, then it recorded for 5 seconds, and it buffered at the end. You'd have to sit there and wait for it to come through.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough, the cameras that I got to run then were all on SD cards. I knew videographers that I worked with that were on the little tapes. That's what I did when I was in college. My degree, I have a double major in journalism and environmental studies. So the journalism program has all their TV, television broadcasting within it. So that's where I cut my teeth on videography and production. We had to do that for like the news station.
Yeah.
And go and create stories and video them and do the audio and produce them. But everything was on little tapes. Before that, it was VHS tapes. The cameras have gone from huge. I mean, some of them as big as this
massive,
table to now cameras that you can put in your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just incredible to see how it's evolved. And I think for you and I, a little bit of our perspective on how we do things is different just because of the way the technology is advanced.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So I think initially we want to talk about, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about how you film turkey hunts, or do you want to talk about gear first? Where do you want to go?
I think we kind of just jump into how we do it, and then the gear will kind of fall into place as we're kind of talking about it.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say one thing to say before we jump into the turkey part is, if you're listening to this and you don't know anything about it, I think we're going to try to give a lot of perspective because some people listening to this have a real good idea, and some people listening to this have no idea. Mm-hmm. I mean, it can be as simple when it comes to videoing hunts, literally using a home camcorder camera.
Yep.
If you're trying to do it in a tree stand, getting a camcorder and a camera arm and pointing it in the right direction. That's literally what it can be. It's gotten to the point now you could do it on your cell phone.
Oh yeah.
There's different brands out there now that make mounts that are magnetic, where you can put a case on your phone and you could magnet it to a stabilizer. You could magnet it to pretty much anything.
Anything, yeah.
I know for me, when I go out by myself, a lot of times, like if I don't have Jet with me and I see a raccoon walking down the trail or something cool, I just pull out my phone. It does 4K.
Yeah.
So you can film it that way. And then again, you can go from that simple to, it can get so advanced to the cameras, the camera arms, point of view cameras, audio,
there's so
lighting. It can go up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. There, you can just get into it, or you can dive head first, and you can get into a whole realm of a lot of stuff that you can do when it comes to filming.
Yep.
Which is cool. It's fun to be a part of it.
But the cool thing, the reason I say that is just to say, don't feel like a couple of those people that we talked to this winter, I think, and listen, I think a lot of people feel like they're like, man, I got to go all in.
Yeah.
Like I got to spend $5,000.
Yeah.
No, you don't, man.
No.
Like I'm the type of person that when I go in, I go all in, and I have a hard time throttling back.
Yeah.
But when it comes to video equipment, don't think you have to do that.
No, you
it
don't
can
need
be
to.
very, very simple.
Yeah.
I would shy on the side of, get something less and then kind of evolve into it.
Learn it.
Yep, learn it again, because again, it's just like in Ozonics. Like it's all about setup.
Yeah.
I tell people a lot of times when you start filming, just put it on full auto and let the thing eat. You know what I mean?
And
then start to mess with focus. Then start to mess with. Then start to mess with the iris.
Yeah.
Start to mess with your f-stop.
Yeah.
Start to mess with all the shutter speed, all these other things. Because if you just if you buy a 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 camera lens and you go all in right off the bat and you don't even know what you're doing, it can be all of a sudden you go from I love filming and I love this to I hate this. This is dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you miss the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you are getting into this and you don't really have a background with it, start out small and figure out what you can figure out, and then start upgrading. Because if you don't have a background and you just buy the best, the biggest stuff, there's a lot to it that you don't realize. All the different controls, buttons, everything, and it can be very overwhelming to try and learn.
Yeah, when you start to dive into settings on cameras, man, it is a rabbit hole.
It is a deep, deep hole
of files and folders.
Yeah.
And one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and all of a sudden you change something you can't remember, and then all of a sudden you're doing a hard reset back to way over here.
Yeah.
So again, start simple, start easy. At the end of the day, the most important thing that you can't change later is the focus.
Yeah.
Try to get it in focus.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was like one golden rule,
learn that.
Get it in focus.
Yeah.
Even if it's on full auto, just let it, try to get it in focus, because you can't fix the focus later. If it's too bright or too dull or this or that, that, just get in focus. But start simple and try to understand some of the nuances of of just what makes the video and the picture look the way it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And YouTube is a great thing.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said,
you can
YouTube,
find so many videos on this type of stuff.
YouTube and Google, you know what I mean? Sometimes I would say the one thing, for example, like all this podcasting equipment. A year and a half ago, I knew nothing about podcast equipment before you even worked here.
Yeah.
So it's March. It's April. Wow. It's April. You've been here since last March.
Yeah.
We started talking about the podcast the September before.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a rabbit hole dive for me to go, okay, what mics? Like what lighting equipment?
Yeah.
Can the cameras that we have work? Do we need an audio interface?
Yeah.
And one of the things I will say about YouTube that you have to be a little discerning of is make sure, and again, they're good videos, but when you see that it says sponsored, you know what I mean? A lot of times the people that are talking, it's like they're sponsored or it's an affiliate program. So they're going to say what they say because they're trying to get you to type, click on the description and click on the link and buy. Yeah. So just be cognizant of that. I would say try to look across the spectrum at gear. And that's just like this podcast stuff, like looked at a lot of different mics and tried to get a lot of different perspectives. And, if you're looking at something to buy, type in the name reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Type in the name positive reviews, negative reviews.
Yeah.
And again, a guy that I really liked to look at a long time ago, years ago, Peter McKinnon.
Yep.
Peter McKinnon is an unbelievable talent, and he does great videos of how-to videos. There's a bunch of different content creators out there that do that type of thing.
Yeah.
But YouTube is a great tool. I mean, there's so much out there, and you start to hear the same things.
Yeah.
You start to hear the same thing over and over. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And you'll hear the bad things too. You'll hear people say, they talk about, oh, this camera does this thing. This screen doesn't turn.
Yeah.
I don't like that it only goes up and down. I wish it completely flipped around. You start to hear those things, and you have to decide is where do I see the value?
Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway, all right. So let's get into gear for turkey hunting.
Okay. So for turkey hunting, obviously we're hunting in a blind. So
we're mostly archery hunting.
Yep.
And or we also, if we take my kids, it's youth hunting.
Yep.
A lot easier in a ground blind. Just get away with a lot more movement.
Yep.
Especially with the camera gear.
Yeah.
Just trying to film, it's way easier in a ground blind because we can get away with and look and talk to each other and stay on the same page.
Yep.
So yeah, we're mostly in a ground blind.
Yep. And so our main camera that you see, which would be, the turkeys coming in, kill shots, yada, 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 that is shot on a Sony A7S III. Great camera, shoots 4K 120.
Mirrorless camera.
It's smaller.
Yep.
It's a little bit lighter, easier to handle, carry.
So if I can jump in there, I'm going to try to kind of jump in the little tidbits. When he talks about 4K 120, meaning 4K resolution, which is 4 times 1080, that's why they call it 4K.
Yep.
And then when he says 120, that's the frames per second.
Yep.
So 120 frames per second, which basically in layman's terms means it's shooting in slow-mo.
Slow motion, yep.
But it plays back in real time.
Yep.
And then in post-production, you can slow it down if you want.
Yep.
That camera will actually it'll do 240 at 1080 resolution. But that 120 native, you'll hear people talk about, to be able to film in 120, but still look like it's framing in normal 24 or 30 frames per second is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that Sony A7S III is unbelievable in low light.
Yes.
It also has, now I'm drawing a blank. It also has, you filmed it with Jet. Geez, why am I'm losing the name of it? Oh, S-Log? It also has S-Log, which, again, that is getting super advanced.
Yeah.
But the idea behind S-Log is it shoots in a very kind of matted grayish color.
A raw is what?
Yeah, or a raw.
Raw, kind of flat color.
Yep. And then it gives you the ability, it's almost like, imagine a camera is like a brain, and the brain only has so much power to allot that power to different senses.
Yeah.
When you shoot an S-Log, it shoots more raw or flatter.
Yeah.
And instead of using that brain power for the quality of the image.
And the color.
Yeah, it's using that power for focus and everything else of the camera.
Just overall clarity, really.
Clarity of the image, absolutely. Yeah. And then you can really you adjust that in post.
Yep.
If you don't have the ability to adjust in post and you're just trying to film how you are, doing S-Log is not a good idea.
Yeah. It's not a good idea, and it's totally fine to shoot just regular.
Absolutely.
It's totally fine.
Yep. A lot of these cameras have like an HD or like a saturated look, or you know what I mean? Like that looks really, really good. It really kind of boosts the colors.
Yeah.
Or just shooting it and putting it in auto and letting the camera adjust. It looks super good.
Yeah.
But so sorry, get back to it. A7S III.
Yep. A7S III. Depending on the setup, I'd say probably 90% of it we shoot it with the 70 to 200 millimeter lens, which is an f2.8.
That's a G series lens.
Yep, G series. Actually, I got it right here.
So you'll hear a lot of people talk about kind of like the trifecta of lenses. You'll hear a lot of people talk about like a 16 to 35, a 70 to 200, and then like a 2 to 6, or even like a 16 to 35, a 35 to 70, and a 70 to 200.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll talk about those three.
Yeah.
This is, there's a guy, Stephen Drake.
Yep.
Is an unbelievable outdoor photographer that does a lot of stuff for Sitka. He swears by a 70 to 200. You hear a lot of guys that this is just like, if you're going to buy one lens that's like, can get you, you're not going to get ultra wide with this, but you want a little bit wider and you want to be able to zoom in, 7200. This is an unbelievable lens.
Yeah, this is easily, I was going to say probably, but the more I think about it, is easily my most used lens.
Absolutely.
With being able to drop it down to 2.8, which is your aperture.
Yep.
So 2.8, what that means is when you're at 2.8, whatever's in focus is going to be really in focus, and everything in the back is going to be blurred out, essentially. That's a very simple way of explaining it.
Well, and the other simple way of explaining it is when you talk about your f-stop, you're talking about your depth of field.
Yep, exactly.
So when it's at 2.8, if you can see, and what I'm doing right here, this is the subject, and my other finger is the focus, the depth of the focus. On 2.8, it's very shallow.
Yeah,
it's very
tight.
shallow. Yeah, it's very tight. As you go up an f-stop from 2.8 to 4 to 11 and go up and up and up, your depth increases.
Yep.
So shallow depth of field, as they would call it, meaning the subject and the area of focus, that's something in the last couple of years that has really come on in videography is shallow depth of field. You actually see a lot of shallow depth of field now in sports videography.
Yep, 100%.
When you watch NFL, you'll see the cameras on the field. When they're like right up on the huddle, you'll just see the player and then everything else out of focus. I actually heard and read a thing about how that started during COVID.
Oh.
Because there was all these stadiums, they were completely empty.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, the viewers watching, they would have, the depth was always really big so you could see everything around you.
Yeah.
Well, you're just looking at an empty stadium.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they shallowed up the depth. So all of a sudden it was just about, hey, I just want to look at the athlete that I'm seeing. And so the challenging thing with a shallow depth of field is when you've got that shallow depth, if that subject moves out of it, you have to really adjust your focus. So as a beginner, you're better off to shoot, instead of at 2.8, maybe shoot at 4 or 5 or 6.
Yep.
And so you have a larger depth.
Yeah.
So it gives you a little bit more leeway.
Yeah, essentially you don't need to be as precise with your focus.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's it's funny because that's how I started. When I started, so just a little tidbit about when you're filming hunts, you're a lot of times in woods, branches around. So I suggest learning how to shoot in manual focus, because what's going to happen is if you shoot in auto, the auto is going to grab onto branches and limbs and everything like that. Yep. So then that means that the deer will be out of focus. But when you're in manual, you can roll the focus to the deer. But what I did was when I started, I shot everything at a very high aperture so that essentially everything would just always be in focus.
Yep.
And there's a thing called peaking, which shows where the focus is. And what I would try to do, honestly, is just try and get where the deer is going to be walking, just make sure everything is peaked out in red so I know when he comes in, you're good to go.
Yep.
So that's where once you get better at focus, then you can start playing with a little bit lower aperture, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say about that too, when if you're going to shoot in full auto, great. Like if you're just starting out, great.
Yeah.
But to your point, when you get in the woods, what's inherently going to happen is you're just going to walk up and there's going to be a branch with a leaf. And your camera, it doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the computer inside the technology inside the camera is going to go see what's moving. It's go whoop. It's going to focus on that.
Yeah.
There's obviously a focus area that can be adjusted, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But so if you were going to try to go off of full auto and adjust just one thing, the one thing, like you're saying, I would agree with you, to start messing with or adjusting yourself is focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then when that deer walks out and there's that tree and a leaf, you can have the opportunity to adjust and go, I don't want to focus on that leaf. I want to focus on the deer behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
You see that a lot of times, like like elk hunting, right? Like all of a sudden an elk walks in and all of a sudden you're just focused on like this pine tree, you know, and you're like, oh, well, they were on full auto,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. You see it.
In the moment,
Yeah.
your adrenaline's going, everything's happening so fast, you just don't have time, you know? So you're just like, oh, shoot it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you're going to try to adjust one thing on your own, that's where the focus can be great.
Yeah.
But the bad thing is if you don't get the focus right, you can't crisp it up after the fact.
You can't. You can try to, but it just ends up wrecking everything.
Yep. So that's the thing. If you don't hit the focus, you don't hit it. Yep. You can adjust the light up and down. You can adjust the color, but if it's out of focus, it's out of focus.
Yep. There's nothing you can do about it.
Anyway, back to that thing.
So another thing about something that's good about an f2.8 when you're filming hunts is, so again, this is going really in the weeds, but when you drop aperture, so once you go to 2.8, it brightens the picture.
Yes.
And so that's really good for low light situations because you can have more room to play with brightness rather than say you're at like a 9.0 aperture, it's going to be darker.
Yep.
So that's another really good thing about this lens, to be able to drop it down 2.8
from 70 to 200.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So and then that's another thing about the A7S III that we just learned and just started playing with. It has dual native ISO, I believe it's called. But basically what that means is it's just a powerhouse in the light. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when you bring ISO up, it causes grain, but on these cameras, if you get to 12,800, I believe.
That was 12,800.
I think it was 12,800. Basically another form of ISO kicks in and it brings up the light but takes away the grain. Yep. So A7S III, great camera for filming hunts due to the low light.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, the A7S III has become the camera that everybody knows if you're trying to shoot in low light, which is basically hunting.
Yeah.
It is the cat's meow.
Yep, it's awesome.
There's people that predator hunt with an A7S III at night.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can make it look like
it's insane.
It's almost daytime.
It's unbelievable.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
There's times when we're hunting and I'm watching deer out in the field and then I can't even see it with my naked eye.
Yeah, exactly. Or I put up the binoculars last fall.
Yeah.
And it's past shooting light. We're looking at it, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at my binoculars, and then you turn the ISO up, and it's just like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I would mention about these lenses that we do, and I don't know if everybody does this or not, but something pretty easy, and you can see even as we're setting these lenses, some people look at this, might be watching this and kind of cringe because we're setting it down right on the the lens, and we don't have lens covers.
Yeah.
But the reason for that is we use UV filters.
Yep.
Okay. One, UV filters are great because it blocks UV light.
Yep.
It's going to make your color better.
Yep.
Just when it comes into the camera. But the other thing is that inherently, camera equipment, it's built tough.
Yeah.
But it's not built tough enough to drop it out of a tree.
No.
It's not built tough enough for me to like roll it off the end of this table.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is if something catastrophic would happen, it's going to have to break this UV glass first.
Yeah.
If we break the UV glass, guess what? We thread this off and we get a new one.
Yep, exactly.
You break the lens of the glass of the camera, lens is shot.
Then you're out a couple $1,000s.
Yep. So UV filters are a great thing. Almost all cameras, even normal camcorder cameras, again, they get scratched.
Mm-hmm.
You're just scratching the UV filter. Who cares?
Yeah.
You scratch the lens,
Look at it like it's an insurance policy.
Exactly. I mean, it's just really handy. You can get them. Obviously, they're specific to the objective millimeter.
Yep.
This is probably 77. We have the bigger ones like 82 or 88.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. So the smaller video camera that's on you is smaller than that, even 60 something. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you can get different UV filters.
Yeah.
That's a great little thing to do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't do that. I think you've had people ask, and you even asked me, like when we first were like, well, what is that?
Yeah.
I was like, that was just something that I have always done.
Yeah. And it's not like a filter where it changes the color of the lens either. It's just clear. It's very simple. Like when we first got this, I had never ran those on there before. And I'm like, well, it's going to change the picture quality. It's going to mess with the light. But then once we got it, it all made sense perfectly.
I mean, if you look at it, like when you're buying them, they have all these technical specs in it. blocks UV, ultralight, and it does.
Yeah.
But like when you're editing it, you can't tell that.
No.
It's really just there to help protect it.
Yep.
You know, and it's cool. You can get lots of different ones. I mean, we actually have, I don't know if you have them over here, but we have variable ND filters.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep. They're up there.
Yep. Which basically what that means is it's basically sunglasses for your lens, and you can adjust that and it will make it darker.
Yep.
So in like, if for example, one of the tricky parts about filming at an aperture 2.8 is it does let more light in.
Yeah.
So if it's the middle of the day and it's super bright out and you're at 2.8, man, you're really going to have to start adjusting other settings of the camera. Or you could put in a variable ND and basically kind of make your sunglasses darker and still be able to film at 2.8.
Yep, exactly.
And so there's lots of different cool things. You can get polarized filters so you can film if you're like fishing or film in water or through water. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
But great idea to keep the lens safe.
Yep. So this is probably our most used lens. This is what we shot with all fall, really.
Yeah, it seemed
as our main angle lens.
And we usually film this. This is what you filmed with all last spring turkey hunting.
Yep, all last
Pretty
spring.
much.
Yep,
that was it.
Yep. So
one thing I would ask if you could explain is if you were filming in a tree, how far do you feel comfortable filming from that 70 to 200?
Oh, it's a good question.
Because like if we were filming in a tree, let's say we were at V18 and the deer walked by at that really close trail.
Oh,
that's at 10 yards.
You're totally good.
You could put it at 70
and you're fine.
And be totally fine.
You're way fine.
But if they were at the top of the hill and that's 55, 60 yards, you could zoom into 200.
200 and be fine.
Yep.
Totally fine.
That's the nice thing about it. And if you're filming at 4K, you can still crop if you have to.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people, I think even when we started looking at, like even the 2 to 6, I'm like, well, how far can we reach out?
Yeah.
And that's what I think that you and I talk about. It's like, well, how close is the shot going to be?
Yeah.
Where I think the 70 to 200 can get a little tricky in situations is like, for example, elk hunting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, 70 to 200, like if they come into 5 yards, is 70 going to be too close? It's going to be too tight. You know what I mean? But then it's nice to be able, if they stand out there at 60, to be able to put it to 200. Yeah. So this would probably be what you would do for elk hunting too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, like we said before, this is not the perfect way. Yeah. I think if there was another lens to buy if you're only filming hunts, would be a 24 to 240.
Yeah.
Because a 24 to 240, you get that extra range, but then at 24, you can film interviews, you can do really anything with it. It's not as high or as low as an aperture. I think it's like an f4, 4.5 maybe. Yep. But that's also another great option. But once we get ahead, we'll kind of talk about why that's not what we do.
Yep. And that's the other thing to mention too, is just so we understand, again, I'm trying to go back to the person that maybe doesn't know a lot about this. Yeah. When we say 70 to 200, 70 millimeter means it's a wider view.
Yeah.
And a 200 means it's a tighter view.
Yeah.
It's basically like zoomed in. You know what I mean? So when he talks about a 7200 or a 24 to 240, a 24 is that's like a wide angle lens.
Really close to wide.
Yeah. So you really can get the entire picture of what's going on.
Yep.
But a 70, I mean, you're just a lot tighter.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? You hear a lot of people that will carry like a 50 millimeter prime lens.
Yeah.
Because 50 is just a really good look, right? Yeah. It's not ultra wide, but it's not 70.
Yeah.
It's kind of right that in between.
Yeah. It's like a natural look, I'd say.
Yes.
Like just a normal picture that you see.
Well, and you always hear talk about like back in the day it was 35 millimeter cameras.
Yeah.
Well, they say 50 is like the 30 is it looks very much like a 35 millimeter. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just that kind of like what kind of suits your eye. But this 7200 has been awesome.
Great picture. Great for taking stills too.
Absolutely.
So then our other lens that we'll use for main angle, which is an awesome lens, probably my favorite.
Oh, the big boy. You know what? We don't even have a Zonix on the table.
Oh, shoot.
Don't worry, I got it. Let's put it on here.
This will be a good comparison.
Yeah, actually, there you go. I just funny because we had no Zonix on the table, and I'm like, we're missing something here.
Yeah, actually, I did too. Like right before we started, I'm like, there is like a lot of space right now.
Yeah, but it's actually helped for just kind of comparison of size. Everybody knows how big an Ozonics is.
Yeah.
So you can see like a 70 to 200 millimeter lens, what that would look like comparatively in size, or even just compared to my hand.
Yep.
So yeah. I know, because sometimes when you see them in pictures, it's kind of hard to really distinguish.
Kind of hard to tell.
But this has been the big upgrade that we made this last summer.
Yep. So
this is something that you filmed with a lot of Midwest Whitetail that they really swear by.
Yeah. It's a Sony 200 to 600
G lens.
So again, it's just crazy to think that where this ends, this starts. Because this, you can get pretty tight on this, but then this is just a whole nother level. You really got to be careful of when and where you use this. This is going to be really heavy for in a tree on a camera arm, so that's why, like, we've been using this in a blind for the most part.
Yep.
We filmed you shoot a doe during muzzleloader season.
Use it during the summer for velvet filming.
That's where it really shines.
We use it if we're doing some really set up, it would be like in the field studio video shots or photos where it's just like you're on a tripod.
Yep.
You're trying to get farther away.
Yep.
The 2 to 6 really, really shines.
Yep.
It doesn't go down to 2.8. I think it starts at 4?
Oh, I gotta check. 5.6.
Okay, 5.6.
Yep.
Again, the other thing to mention is, you'll see some like telephoto lenses where when you move it, the whole lens goes in and out.
Yep.
Both the 7200 and the 2 to 6 are internal.
Yep.
In that regard, which is pretty awesome.
Yep.
This has been really, really fun.
Yeah, it's a super fun lens to play around with. You can get looks that you don't see as much, and especially just the turkey hunting, because it's pretty close quarters, and to be able to get that tight on it is.
Well, and that's what was the funny thing is we went out with Jet 2 Saturdays ago, and it was youth season. It was we had this whole discussion before we went about, and you have this when you use mirrorless cameras, and it's not, so in mirrorless cameras, it's a body and a lens.
Yeah.
Where a normal camcorder, it's all in one.
Yep.
So you don't have to have as much of that thought process about what am I bringing?
Yeah.
For a lot of people, we've been very fortunate and blessed that we have a couple different lenses and options.
Yep.
So it's okay, what are we going to bring?
Yep.
Well, we mostly have always done the 70-200. This can be a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah.
Because if they come in too close, all of a sudden, you're just looking at an eyeball or a nose or, just the vitals. Mm-hmm. It's just, this stops at 200. This starts at 200.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we kind of talk about you know what? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Let's roll the dice, baby. Let's gamble here.
Yeah.
Let's just try it. Because if it works out, it's going to be amazing. And it turned out great.
Yeah, it was amazing.
When those turkeys are at 15 yards, roughly, and you're zooming up and you can see the hairs on their head.
Yeah.
As they're moving too, and it's all in focus.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
In the summertime when we're velvet scouting and you can have a deer out there at 400 yards and zoom right up on him, oh yeah, he's got a kicker off his right side.
Yeah.
That's not with binoculars, that's with this thing.
Yeah.
And at 4K.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's pretty awesome. Yeah. But again, the drawback is it's heavy. You could use this thing as a dumbbell.
Yeah.
There's nothing small about it.
Yeah.
Again, we run a UV filter on the front. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And that's another thing too to mention. When it's this tight, again, you got to be really sharp on your focus.
Yes.
Because it just gets to be kind of a lot. It can be kind of tough to run. But at the end of the day, it's a very, very good lens, and it's just a unique feel when you can get that tight on an animal, and it's super cool. It's amazing.
So the other thing to mention too is you said about this earlier, and just for someone that maybe doesn't understand, you made the comment about peaking. Yep. What that means when he talks about peaking, most cameras, most camcorders, mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, whether it's which is taking a photo or on taking video, has this thing called peaking. What that means is you can set a color, it's usually red or yellow or green or blue.
Yep.
And what that means is it shows where the lens is at and what it's focused on.
What it's focusing on, yeah.
So you can roll the focus. If you were just filming a field and you roll the focus, you can see your peaking start from really close to you and just go all the way to the back.
Roll.
Yep. And so the nice thing about what he's describing is just if you're trying to do manual focus, turn that peaking on.
Yeah.
Sometimes at first it can be a little distracting
yeah.
because you have to really know where you're at on the color as well, because it's going to change the color of your monitor.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you're square. And that's where I would say, if you're just going to just do all auto and one manual, run manual focus, put the peaking on. But the nice thing is once you see that color go on the thing that you want it to go on, you know that it's in focus. Even as we do this, we always talk, like when I was in college, I talked about, a critical focus, meaning you take the camera, you zoom all the way in, and then you set the peaking on their eyes, their nose, and that's what we do here. And then like this camera is peaking on my head, on my face, it's focused on the right thing. And so peaking can be a really, really valuable tool. And I think some people don't know about it. They just kind of like try to do it off the monitor, and it can get really tricky. Peaking can be really handy when you're trying to self-film. Because you can glance at it and really get it where you want it to be. Usually red is kind of the color of choice.
Red is probably the most used, I think.
Shows up. It's kind of the opposite of what you're going to see out there, except for in the real peak color in the fall.
I remember last year I switched it to yellow because it was my first year filming turkeys, and I was having issues peaking on their red neck. I felt like I was off just a little bit, so I'd switched it to yellow. Worked really good, but once I switched to yellow and kind of figured out where I needed to be, I ended up switching back to red because then the yellow was matching with the corn. So it's just all stuff that's going on in your head. It's kind of crazy, but you just kind of learn as you go.
Cool.
So that's kind of it for the main camera. And like I said before, there's a reason that we don't have the 24 to 240 because we always bring a second camera for our second angle. We use the Sony A7R4, which is another mirrorless. It's made for pictures. It's a really good picture camera, but it shoots in 4K 24 or 1080 120.
The thing that's the real shiner on that A7R4 is the megapixels. It's crazy on the megapixels.
Yes.
You could take a picture that you could put on a billboard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like 50-some megapixels or something like that.
Exactly.
It's really, really high.
And
it's not that the A7S III doesn't do great pictures too. But the A7R4 is just a little bit above.
I think it's like 3 times more megapixels. Like it's insane.
Really, really something.
Yeah, because like for example, like last year, Jet shot a turkey, took some really nice pictures of them, and I got it made into a canvas. And a lot of times when you put them on canvas, it's blowing it up. It gets real pixelated. And this was my first time trying it with this, and man, it just came out just perfect. And that's just because it has all those megapixels to be able to blow it up.
Oh yeah.
It was cool. It just worked.
It's crazy when you blow it up and it's high megapixel, it just looks perfect.
Doesn't grain at all.
Doesn't grain at all, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So then like I said, we run a second angle camera, which I just keep it around my neck or I'll hang it on the tree. That's what we shoot all of our interviews with. Type B-roll of leaves, his bow, whatever. So with that being said, we can get away with having these as our main angle because we're only using it for deer and any critters that are walking by because we have the A7R4 as a second angle that can get all the stuff that's in the tree, in the blind, yada, yada, yada.
And that's where you're talking about, and that's where that 24 to 240, if you're only wanting to carry one body camera and one lens, just one camera setup, that 24 to 240 can be handy because you could do the interviews in the tree at 24, but then you could zoom up on the deer walking by at 240. And I think the moral of the story is there's a million ways to skin a cat. I mean, like I said, we have the 2 to 600, we have the 70 to 200, we have a 24 to 105, and we have a 16 to 35. So again, that 16 to 35 when we were doing instructional videos, when we're doing this type of stuff, the 16 to 35 is right here.
Right there.
It's super wide. It's really close to us. It's a 2.8 lens, it's a G lens as well. But then that 24, you don't really, when it comes to the fall, the 16 to 35 usually just kind of stays here.
Nope, opposite.
Oh, really? The 24 to 105 stays?
24 to 105 stays here.
Interesting.
I use the 16 to 35.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. For some reason, I thought you brought the 24 to 105. But yeah, that 16 to 35 in the tree, it's just at 16, it's like you can get way over here.
You can get some really cool shots.
Oh man, and the depth.
Yeah.
And when you get really close to stuff, like from a macro perspective, man, it just looks so good.
Yeah, that's again another really fun lens to kind of play around with. And
it's funny because I feel like we're really fortunate that the 3 lenses, and it's kind of funny, it's what we have, that when we first started this years and years ago, I was like, man, I'd love to have a 16 to 35. I'd love to have a 70 to 2. that was kind of the two that I was, and a 35 to 70.
Yeah.
But then when we started talking about this, I was like, okay, the 35 to 70, I'm not worried about that. Let's do 16 to 35, 7,200, and 2 to 6.
Yeah.
And it's a real nice boom, boom, boom.
Kind of cover your bases with all of it.
Yeah. And they all have a very distinct look.
Yes.
Maybe that sounds kind of silly as you're listening to this because you're like, well, it's a picture. They all look the same. But
No, they don't.
They all look much different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but again, if you're just trying to get one body and one lens, that 24 to 240, and again, we have Sony lenses and we have Sony body. You can go lots of different routes. There's some guys that just Jason Mears is a Nikon guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Swears by Nikon, you know. It just depends on what you like.
Yeah.
Canon, you hear people talk a lot about Canon's color science
Yeah.
is the best in the business.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at their photos, the colors in Canon photos are just like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just kind of personal preference.
Yep, exactly.
You know, we're trying to juggle the fact that, and that's even in the hunting side of things, how it's changed. 5 years ago, when you looked at social media, it was 3-to-1 photo video.
Yeah.
And now it's like 6-to-1 video photo.
Yeah.
And so, but we still have to be able to do photos and we need to be able to do video. So I think from our perspective, the Sony platform gives you the ability to really do both very well.
Yep, exactly.
And so does Canon and so does Nikon, everything else. But I feel like we've just really, we've set on Sony.
And it's just, it's what you know too. You know, when I was at Midwest Whitetail, that's all we ran with Sony. So I know I'm like, it's the back of my hand.
That was what I ran when I was at Iowa State. That's what I ran when I was in Colorado.
Yeah, there's little things in the settings that kind of stay true throughout.
Yes.
So you just understand those things. Whereas if you switch to a Canon, that one little thing could be completely different. So,
and where that one little thing gets to be an issue is in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Because in the heat of the moment, when you're like, oh, I need to change this quick, and you're like trying to go through, and then you're like thinking about this, and then you can't find it, and then the moment's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where it can get tricky.
Yeah, and you get to a point where like now with that A7S III, I've been running it for like 2 years now. I feel like I'm confident enough with it that I can like run it with my eyes closed. And like if I made any switch to a Canon, Nikon, whatever, it would be like starting all over again.
Yes, absolutely.
So we went through main angle, kind of our interview camera, yada, 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 picture camera up there. So next, let's go into GoPros.
Yes. So as you grab those, I'll explain. So the reason that we talk about like GoPros, really you hear people talk about POV cameras, point of view cameras, where these GoPros, and like I said, tact cams are a great option too. We've used those and we have those too. Where they really become a great tool as well. Do we want to keep these up here or move them?
Let's just move back here.
Okay. The one thing that I'll say about that's really, really cool about point of view cameras is, and when you're just getting into like filming, you don't really notice it. There's times that I see videos and right away I'm like, that was a reenactment.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I really, really notice it when it happens. But when you see a videoed hunt and it's zoomed up on the deer the whole time, you know what I mean? And the deer's walking in the whole way and it's zoomed up on the deer the entire time. And then all of a sudden you see the hunter like clip his release on his string and start to put pressure on the bow. And he like picks up his rangefinder and he looks at the camera and goes, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And then he starts to draw and then and he does it and maybe he even shoots.
Yeah.
You know, like he hangs his bow back up. That's all reenacted.
Yep.
If it's not super wide, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's tight and it looks high quality, they did that all after the fact.
Yep.
Sorry
to burst your bubble, but
sorry,
it's true.
you know, whatever you want to call that. What's the thing I'm thinking of? I did it to you about Yellowstone the other day.
Oh, teaser.
No, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert.
Yeah. And that's just like the way it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
And I think for us, that's where point of view cameras, where GoPros can become such a valuable tool because you can set them up in such a way that when the heat of the moment happens, and the great thing too is from a videographer's perspective, it is way less to try to think about after the fact because you don't have to go, oh, hey, we need to get this and this and this and this and this and this and this. you know you already got it all right here.
Yeah.
And it feels more real.
Yep.
It feels more natural.
Yep.
Again, the average person watching it might not even really realize it.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, and it's interesting. The best videography, you don't even notice it.
No.
You don't even realize
Seamless.
it. It's seamless.
Yeah.
Right? And when you watch TV, you don't even realize that they shoot one person saying their lines, and then the camera's behind the other person, they shoot their lines.
Yeah.
You don't even realize that they do it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
You just watch it,
Yeah.
which is great television.
Yep.
That's what it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
But the great thing about point of view cameras is that you can set those up, and when the heat of the moment happens, you can press record, and they capture it.
Yep, they capture everything.
They capture everything. They capture that real, raw emotion,
Yep.
the shot, everything.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to try to get all that. You have, these are great to what we would call B-roll.
Yeah.
These are our main angles.
Yeah.
Right? And this is our B-roll.
Yeah.
This is all the other stuff that you kind of cut to.
Yeah.
That's everything else that's really happening in the
Yeah.
moment that kind of helps build that story
Yeah.
and put it all together.
Yeah, when he said the B-roll, it's this stuff and then our second angle too.
Yes.
Getting just stuff around the tree, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But I 100% agree with Cole. I think for me, and maybe this is just me, but my goal when I go film a hunt and you end up harvesting something, my goal is to not have a single recreate. I want to have everything shot right there because it's, like Cole said, it's real. It's how it happened. I personally hate I just think it looks cheesy, and I apologize if this is bad, but I think it looks cheesy when you get the real tight of him clipping it on and drawing. It just doesn't feel real, and I think that might be because I've filmed so many hunts and produced so many that I know what's real and what's not. And so if you can capture it all first time, I just think it comes together so much more nicely. And
with these two, they can film in 4K.
Yeah, exactly.
So even
this
if you
films
set
in 5.4K.
Yeah. So even if you're shooting it at the wide angle,
Yeah.
if you wanted to zoom up and not make it look so wide, and
Yeah.
you wanted to get that little closer when he picks up his bow,
Yeah.
you can still zoom in
Yeah, you
on
can crop
this
it
at 4K or 5K.
Yeah. Yep. So the reason I put this on our little stand in Jet's hunt, we had it set up just like this, right up on the decoys. That's just a cool thing you can do with all the GoPros. You can run them from your phone, a remote. So we had this out probably 15 yards from us.
Yep.
Had it on the remote, got it recording, got the turkeys coming in. And then this is a cool thing that we just started using. This is a GoPro mount that has gear ties kind of integrated into the mount. This works really good in a blind because you can take these and kind of wrap them around the
Wrap
poles.
around the poles, wrap around anything.
Yep. So like you see the shot I'll put it in here, the shot of us three in the blind as he shoots, that's coming from this, and all this is wrapped up on the pole.
Literally at the top of the blind out in front of us.
Exactly. And
Yep.
that's probably one of my favorite shots in a blind.
Yes.
I just think it's cool because you can see all of our faces, our reactions, everything that's going on. And this really makes it easy. You can attach it to just about anything, and it works really well in a blind.
Yeah. The thing I would say too, for us when it comes to turkey hunting setup, it's nice to try to run one angle in the blind and then one angle out
Outside.
in the decoys.
Yep.
You know, sometimes this can be frustrating because sometimes it doesn't connect, and then you can't get out of the blind, and you're like, well, I guess we're not getting that today.
Yep.
But the majority of the time, it works just fine.
Yeah.
You're obviously testing it beforehand, and this can be the point of view out in the decoys. You're always it's how much you want to gamble.
Yeah, it's a big gamble.
Yeah, I mean, we gambled all the way with Jets that day because we were talking about it in the morning. We were sitting here in the dark, and you were
Pitch
like,
blackout.
yeah. And you had it farther back, and I was like, let's move it up. And you're like, oh man, are you sure? Because I knew you're like, we're really pot committing to like right there. And I'm like, I know. And then I moved it up again. I was like, whatever, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
And if you move it up too much and you narrow down where you're looking, all of a sudden, if he's right over here and you don't get it, you don't get it.
Yep.
So if you have the ability to put out a couple point of views, that can be nice too.
Yeah.
We've done that in the past with Tacticams.
Yep.
We've put them on multiple sides, and then again, obviously having one in the blind is awesome.
Yep.
To just be able to get all of that right off the bat.
Yep.
The other video that's the perfect example of in the blind GoPro video is last year with that turkey.
Yeah.
That turkey gobbling behind us.
Yep.
And seeing our reaction of me looking at you and like your face mask and your eyes like darting back and forth.
Yeah.
And they're just shooting that turkey and being excited and high-fiving. Same with the muzzleloader or doe kill.
Yeah.
All that's on a GoPro. The other thing that, and again, I know we're talking about deer hunting or turkey, and I don't know if I want to go far into this, but I really enjoy putting these GoPros on, those arms in the stand.
Yeah. Gosh, I was just in kind of turkey mode.
No, you're good. No, you're good. And I'm sorry. I know we were talking about turkeys first.
No,
but
you're good.
I feel like, he'll put up some video right now of like, we have this big extender arm. It's made by Fourth Arrow.
Yep.
That's like about 2.5 feet long normally. And it's got these little clips that you loosen and it extends out. And it telescopes out to like
really far.
8 feet.
Yeah.
And then it has a mount that you can adjust it so you can adjust the angle of it. So what I like to do is I'll stand, I'm clipped in on my harness and everything, but I'll stand on my seat and I'll put that mount in above us and then I set it so it's way out in front of us. Yeah. It looks like a drone just floating over top of us. You can't even see the arm.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to set it multiple times to get it right.
Yeah.
But it just creates such a different perspective that you're like, it's kind of fun. I love when I see stuff. I'm like, how'd they do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how did they do that?
Yeah.
Or the fun thing is to set it low and have it pointed out in front of you, pointed back up at you where you can. And again, obviously, we're always trying to showcase the ozonics.
Yeah.
So when you have it out in front of you, point it back up. Again, just to be able to get it all the first time. And not only, I think sometimes when you see videoed hunts, everybody has a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
Some people do tons of reenactments. There's a lot of
people do.
There's a lot of people that do a ton of reenactments. That's just how they do it. And that's okay. Again, it's just personal preference. I used to do a lot of reenactments. That's the way it was. And that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
And that tends to be how I lean now. You know what I mean? Like I understand your stance. It doesn't bother me like that. But again, it has to be done tactfully.
Yeah.
We've seen some examples of some reenactments. You're like, there's no way.
Yeah, this is not.
Like reenactments where it's in a separate tree, like pointed back at them, and then like the light's entirely different. You're like, okay, come on. Like
gotta do better.
You gotta try a little harder than that.
Yeah.
But I totally lost my train of thought. But I think that whenever we can try to have that point of view where we can try to showcase the ozonics, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And again, it's just nice to get it all. That's what I was getting at is that I think a lot of times when you see videoed hunts, a lot of times it's just the hunter. But I think what I think that we really enjoy is trying to show people the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's not just me up there. It's not just you up there. It's the both of us.
Yeah.
Even from a scent control perspective.
Yep.
There's more to it than just trying to work out one person up there. It's the both of us. And we're both. And when you're filming hunts, I think what a lot of people don't realize is you really have to be able to communicate and work together effectively.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like pick up your bow, get on it, set a range, draw and shoot.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. It's like, okay, can you see it? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you on it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not on it. It's behind a tree. Well, I want to shoot it. Well, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more movement, a lot more everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's fun, these point of view cameras, to be able to show
that and
both of us up there.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing to mention about these GoPros that we kind of made an upgrade to this year is the media mod or the audio mod that they have with it. It's just basically like this little case that clips onto it and it gives it like a shotgun mic.
Yep.
It's pretty awesome. It also has the ability to run a shotgun mic off of what they call like a shoe, which is like a mounting system on the mount or on the case itself.
Yep.
And then you can plug that in to the GoPro, which takes the audio to the even next level.
Yep.
We've had a lot of fun with that. So you can see this looks like it's pointed the wrong way, but the front of the mic is here. We just don't want to have it in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And the audio that you have, and we can play some of that right now of that, Tom, he was putting and just going berserko, wanting to fight that decoy. You can hear that so good on there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a calm day. even with the wind, you catch the wind. It's just, it's really, really, really fun.
Yeah, that was the thing. The one downside about that morning, it was pretty windy, so you're catching a lot of corn stalks blowing around and stuff. But then when that Tom was talking, man, it picked it up really nice. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I'm really excited to use moving forward. Is just I think that this is going to open up a lot of doors from the audio standpoint.
Yep.
So
one of the other things to mention, just while we were looking at this, I know I don't need to get too far in the weeds, but you see this. If you're listening, you can't see it, but there's like a fuzzy thing over this. The idea behind this, the idea behind this is that's supposed to help cut down on wind.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
The windscreen.
Yep. So windscreen. So if you take that off there, you can run it with that off there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times some people do, like in studio situations like this, they just take them off. They're like, hey, I want as crisp and as just mint audio as I can get.
Yeah.
They'll take those off. But when you're in the field, this just really helps cut down on the wind noise. Yep. That's why you always see those on there if you're ever wondering why. That's the whole idea behind it.
Yep.
And it's really soft.
Yep. It's very soft.
Okay. What's next?
So since we're on audio, we'll just show what wireless mics we use. Don't really need to go too in depth on this, but
yeah. So the idea behind wireless mics, and I think this is one of the things. If you're just beginning when it comes to filming hunts, don't worry about wireless mics. You know what I mean? Cameras. Cameras have microphones. They're not super duper amazing, but they're good. So like a shotgun mic is a great addition, but again, the idea behind wireless mics is that you're really catching the audio of the person.
Yep.
Where you want to take that out of the way?
Yeah.
Where wireless mics can really come in handy is, again, when we're turkey hunting or we're in a tree stand, is you're trying to whisper, and obviously you have earbuds or headphones in.
Yep.
If you have a mic on me and it's a wireless mic, you can hear everything. If I clear my throat, you know what I mean? It's like if I'm chewing gum, you honestly like want to jump out of the tree. It's just you don't realize how terrible chewing gum sounds.
Yeah.
But so wireless mics and like a lavalier mic can be really awesome. But if you're just starting out, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
But this, if you are looking to try to take your video and audio to the next level, this is a great way to do it.
Yep. Huge for interviews.
Yep.
Just sounds that much clearer. I really like it just when you can hear the dialogue between Cole and I. Are you on him? Are you good? Yada yada. Oh, he's coming right here. It's really cool to be able to pick that up and hear that kind of stuff. So
well, it's funny. I never even honestly, dude, in the heat of the moment, I didn't even know I was saying it. But when you look at Jets Hunt, that turkey comes out, and I'm sitting there going, wait,
yeah,
wait,
yep.
wait. Okay, wait, get off that one. Wait. If you're on his head. Okay, go for it. Wait. Everybody that's seen the video hears me say, they kind of laugh at me, go, wait, wait. But it's funny because that becomes a part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the fun thing about getting that type of audio is that's really what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't have said it 14 times, but that's just how it was. Like I was just trying to make sure Jet wasn't going to shoot yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we didn't have those microphones, we might not have caught that up, or it would have been a bit distracting from hearing the audio of the turkey coming in. Instead, it became a part of it.
Yep. Exactly.
And so that's where these mics can be great. Like I said, we have Rode mics. We also have some Sennheiser mics.
Yep.
Sennheiser and Rode kind of seems like the two real brands when it comes to wireless microphones.
Yep.
They're both great.
Yeah.
They have kind of different pros and cons, but both great. Rodes are really small. That's pretty awesome. Like I said, the Sennheiser's a little bit bigger. The receivers are a little bit bigger.
Yep.
But it's kind of tomato.
Yeah. They both sound great. They're awesome. I think so. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was just the camera arm that we use.
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's kind of a question that we tend to get a decent amount.
Yeah. So, like I said, we've there's lots of different camera arms out there, and this is really what we have kind of set on using. One of the big things that I would say that you can do when it comes to any camera arm, and one of the things I think is always kind of a struggle for people, is really getting it secure on the tree.
Yeah.
Getting it as tight as you possibly can. And one of the things that I would say the biggest upgrade you could make right off the bat is your strap.
Yes.
Like you can see, this is probably about a 2-inch wide strap. A lot of times camera arms just come with like a 1-inch strap.
Yep.
But think about the strap like surface area. The more surface area you have, the more that's touching the tree, the tighter it's going to be.
Yep, exactly.
So, and again, try to keep the strap as long as you can. At times that can be really frustrating because it's really long, but there'll be that time when you get in a really big tree and you're like, awesome.
It's not
long enough and we can't use the arm today.
Yeah.
This is definitely long enough.
Yep.
But so go into it.
Yep. So we run fourth arrow stuff. I believe that's called the Talon, maybe?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
It's their more recent. I think they maybe have one head out newer than this.
Yep.
And this is one newer than their original head.
Yeah.
And we use their original. I like this one a lot better.
It's got really good bite in the tree, stays in really good.
You can see the bite on the back. It's got basically these 4 teeth that, man, they bite.
They bite in hard.
They bite.
Yep. And then we run I believe it's called the Pro Arm. Another popular one that a lot of guys use is called the Stiff Arm, which is more circular. This is the Pro Arm. It's just, it's a lot beefier, a lot heavier. You know, when you're running these big lenses and stuff, you need something that can hold it good because you're just going to get a lot of play with it.
Well, and I think the thing that I would describe with that is you hold that in, you're the mounting system.
Yep.
You're not going to feel a lot of play when you're way over here.
Yeah.
When you're going to feel play is when you get in a real situation and you're way out here, because then this whole thing becomes a diving board, right? Yep. You don't realize, you would think that this is still so rigid, but it still will bounce.
Yes.
And so again, if you can try to create a situation where you can film close to you, that's great. Yep. But inherently what's going to happen is the deer's going to come on the wrong side of the tree, and all of a sudden you're doing this, trying to film all the way around the other side, and then it starts to get really bouncy. Yep. And so again, I think all camera arms are bouncy. The only camera arm that I haven't seen that's bouncy is that one John Bergman had.
Yeah, that he made.
And that thing, oh my goodness, I bet that thing weighed 50 pounds.
Yeah,
and when you put it in the tree, I mean, you could do pull-ups off that thing. Yeah. It wasn't going to move. It was crazy. I'm like, wow. And he goes, yep, steadiest arm I've ever used. And he goes, and I had a buddy like weld it up for me.
Yeah.
And so the inherent thing is they all can be a bit bouncy if you hold them all the way out and you put a 70-2 with a big body and a mic and everything else on it, and you lean on it on accident. They can be bouncy. So the more rigid arm you can get, they have round or rectangular square tubes, the stiffer they get.
Yep. And then as you can see, no fluid head on it right now. We're using the fluid head on our tripod. We use the Manfrotto, don't know what it's called, but it's just a big beefy fluid head. Works really, really good on this. That fluid head has a 1/4-20 on it, so you can screw it down on there nice and tight, and it just gives you just a real smooth pan. Works really, really well.
Yep. The other thing to mention, you can see this fourth arrow is usually black. We actually have this. It's called stealth tape.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. Actually, it's been around for a while. It's gotten really popular here recently. Tethered uses it on a lot of their one sticks.
Yep.
But I've used it for years. Like I said, we've had this for years. And again, just really quiets it down. Just doesn't, when it's coming in and out of your backpack, or hitting branches, it just really quiets it down. It doesn't ting near as much if it was just the bare like aluminum.
Yep.
So like that stealth tape is pretty cool. We have another mounting head that we had it all camoed up and stealth taped up. It's a great option.
I broke that one.
Yeah. So now we have the one that's not, but it's tomato.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah, this is the stealth tape on this is where it really, really comes in handy.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. Especially on the end, like when you're pulling it out of your pack, digging around.
Yep.
It just really helps.
Yep. Well, that's all that I got. That was probably really a lot of information,
and we went all over the map there.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be multiple episodes just on technique.
Yeah.
About settings. We could do multiple episodes just on equipment.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would mention that I don't think we talked about in a turkey blind is obviously we're using a tripod.
Oh, yep.
That's the other thing that I would say is, you talk about if there's like the cornerstones of trying to do videography, obviously I think from my perspective, I would hang my hat on focus.
Yeah.
If you run full auto and everything else, just if you can manual focus or just get it in focus. But one of the other things that I would think that really, really comes in handy is steady footage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of cameras have image stabilization, but it can only do so much.
Yeah.
Like if it's sitting here going like this,
Yeah.
and you only get like the last second to like hold your breath and get on the deer, and then it's all shut and shaky as it's running away.
Yeah.
That's not going to do you much good. You know, these lenses are only good as, you know, the foundation that they're built off of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a good tripod, like you said, we use Manfrotto fluid heads, which help with the stabilization moving back and forth, but also just having a good tripod set.
Yep.
Obviously, we're using this as a tripod, kind of like
tree.
in a tree. But if you're in a ground blind tripod, don't try to freehand it.
Yeah.
As I know, tripods can be a real pain in the butt. I mean, I spent years like carrying a tripod, like extended on the camera and setting it down. All of a sudden, we would be elk hunting, and sometimes you did just run it offhand. But tripods are really, really huge.
Yep. And so we use the Manfrotto tripod as well. The thing that's really nice about that is it has leveling. It doesn't just level off of the legs on it. It levels off the, I guess you could say, the fluid head. You loosen it up and then you can get it nice and level wherever you're at. And that really helps a lot, because a lot of times you can kind of be cussing the tripod a little bit if you got to get one leg a little higher than the other. At this point, or with that tripod, you can just get it set where it's not going to move and then level it off the middle, and it works really well.
Because what he's describing there is where that, and if you're new to this, you're going to be like, well, what difference does it make? The difference it makes is if you just only level off the legs, that, and a lot of them have a little bubble, but that gets tricky.
Yeah.
These the same way, because it's level when you're pointing straight forward.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, pan it to the left and pan it to the right. All of a sudden, your image goes, and it goes, and if you're off at all on the level, when you start to pan, you'll see all of a sudden everything starts to move because it's falling off.
Yeah.
Right? It's not level. And so that's where if you have a tripod that has below the fluid head, has a base that moves and can be leveled exactly perfect.
Yeah.
That's where it can be huge, because you know, you hear a lot of people that fight that, like, oh man, I'm perfect right here, but if I move over here, all of a sudden everything gets way off. Well, that's because you're not really level.
Yeah, you're not.
You know, you think you are, but when you start panning to left and right, and that's the thing you can do in a camera. A lot of cameras have a level that a level line that will show you as you pan, and all of a sudden you'll see a level fall off, and then you know.
Yep. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But yeah, the biggest thing I would say, again, we could go into the weeds for another hour about this stuff, but the biggest thing I would say is just get out there and have some fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing that we didn't mention that I would say too, that I think I've mentioned before in the podcast that I think has been rekindled for me is, you know, the last how many years I've been kind of a lone ranger when it comes hunting. I just, you know, my kids were kind of little, and so I just, when I would go hunting, it was just my time to be out there, and I would just be out there, and enjoy doing that. When we started filming last fall, I was like, man, this is going to be an adjustment for me. Like, I don't know how this is going to go.
Yeah.
Because you kind of get the way you do it.
Yeah.
Your nuances and the process, like you just kind of have your way. But I will say the one thing that I've really enjoyed is I feel like I've really enjoyed the camaraderie of being out there together and creating something together in that way.
Exactly.
And the other thing I would say is there's the camaraderie of videoing hunts, and also just capturing that moment.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some moments that we've caught on camera even in the last 12 months. Jet's youth turkey the other day. His youth deer last fall.
Yep.
That late muzz doe.
Yeah.
The does that we've killed, you know, during the archery season.
Yeah.
Last spring turkey hunting. That stuff, when you get it on camera, you have that forever.
Yeah.
And there's really something to that. Not that, you know, everybody has their different reason for videoing hunts. You know, I'm not doing it for any sort of affirmation or notoriety or success or whatever you call it, or money. I'm doing it because I really enjoy showing my friends and family.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? That's what I really enjoy.
Yep.
And like you said, we're doing it for Ozonics to try to showcase Ozonics. You know what I mean? And so, and again, you know, so that's what I think what's really, really fun about videography is in that way, I think it can kind of open up a whole new perspective and a whole new, you know, reason for doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's so cool to be able to go home to your wife, your girlfriend, your husband, whoever, and say, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like to share it with my father-in-law who's not a hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
But he can watch it and be like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and just really, really fun.
Yeah. No, that's exactly why I do it too. I'm obsessed with the satisfaction of being able to relive a moment.
Yes.
And that's exactly why I do it. It's just so fun to me.
Yep. So like you said, gone through a lot. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out.
Yep.
Like I said, DM us, figure out a way to get hold of us. Like I said, Nick does a great job. It's a wealth of information. There's a ton of cool stuff that we have. And if you have any questions, the other thing I would say that we didn't mention is if you are in the market for camera equipment, this is a shameless plug with no affiliate anything to do with it. B&H is a great resource.
Yes.
B&H is a great resource because they've got a ton of gear. They're a great resource because they have a really great Q&A section under their products where people can ask questions.
Yep.
You could ask a question and they'll have product specialists or customers that will answer. They have a great review section.
Yep.
You can find other related products, things that you might, I didn't think about that. I need a battery. Oh, I need a filter. Oh, I need a charger. Oh, I need this. It shows you all that. They have really fast shipping. They're great about returns. It's a great place. B&H is a great place.
Yeah.
B&H photo video. If you just type in B&H online, it'll come right up.
Yep.
It's a great place to go for camera equipment.
It's the best.
Yep, it's the best. And that's where we've gotten a lot of this. But anyway, all right, let's wrap it up.
Yep.
Hey, another podcast in the book. Thanks for watching. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast, episode 51. Done.
See you next week.
See you next week. What does he say?
What's up, brother?
What's up, brother? Check.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.